Hi, and in this lesson, you're going to learn about structuring of an Express app. And this particular lecture is going to cover modularize an Express application. So let's first talk about let's not modularize and how we are going to run into some issues. So let's say I have this very simple uh, node application, and you can see if I just go to the root route over here, if I refresh, you can see it just prints out hello world. There's nothing really much going on. But the requirement now is that I should be able to return or find users. All right. So let's go ahead and create a user array that will hold all the users. So that's the point of the users array. So let's go ahead and create it right here. And now you can see that I have a users array with objects. So this is the first object, and you can see the username is Alexis and email is alexis@gmail.com. And this is the second object. So I have two users inside the users array. Now, if I want to get a particular user out of this array, if you're searching, let's say by name, then I can write a method which is getUser, pass in the username, and it's going to return me if that particular user exists or not, right? So I can do that, not a big deal. But now there's a problem. This file, app.js, is supposed to be more about the routes that you're creating, more about the get and the post. It shouldn't have this users array and functions related to users inside the same file. Like, what about if I want to delete a user? Should I start just typing right here, function delete user, and then pass in some sort of a username and to delete the user? What about if I want to update the user? Should I just type it over here? Technically, you can type anything you want over here and it's gonna work just fine. The problem is that now you have users, which is something different from what the app.js file is. So in app.js file, you're basically rendering or sending either a mustache page or you're sending some JSON back or objects back. And now you're mixing it up with some sort of a user's information. This is like if you have your shoes and you're putting it in a refrigerator. You can, but there's a place like a shoe rack for shoes. So let's go ahead and create a place for users. Let's go ahead and add a new file. I'm going to call this file user.js. All right. So user.js is going to be used to hold everything and anything related to users. All right. So I can simply copy this code, right? And I can go over here and paste it and save it. So now if I go over here and when I go to the root URL, what about if I actually want to get the user? So I can use this method, getUser. Let me go copy that. And let me say getUser. And what's the name of the user? Let's go ahead and pass the name, Alexis. So I'm going to get the user object back, right? And I can say over here, var user equals to this, and simply going to send the user as a response back. So let's go ahead and refresh it. There's a problem. This is saying that getUser is not defined. So basically it's talking about this method on line number 15. It's saying, what are you talking about? There is no method called getUser in this particular file. And in this case, it's right. I mean, there is no method function called getUser. Although there is a getUser over here. But how can our app.js file access user.js file? And that is where modules comes into play. So you can think of it, if you are adding some sort of other information, let's say account, customer, admin, all of these things, all of these separate entities can be a separate files. But now the problem is that your code is running, the starting point of your code or your application is in app.js. How would you tell app.js that this particular method belongs to the user and it's right over here in user.js? So let's go to user.js and we are going to say module.exports and we are going to say find and get user. So what is this going to do? This is basically saying that I'm going to export an object and that particular object will have a property which is find, a key which is find, and which is mapped to the getUser function, this one. So anyone outside of user.js, which in this case is app.js, they can use this file if they want to. Only thing they need to do is to require it. So let's go ahead and do that. Constant user equals to require dot like this, and then the name of the file, which is user.js. All right. So now this over here, user, is just a variable name, and you can have any variable that you want. But now this particular variable will have access to whatever is exported. So it has access to the find method. And when you call find, it's basically mapped to the get user. So you can call any arguments, you can pass in the argument, and you'll get back something. So let's go ahead and copy this guy's name. And over here, instead of line number 13, let's go ahead and find the user. So I'm going to say, instead of get user, I'm going to say user.get, user.find. But remember, the key over here is find. Very important. Now, find is mapped to get user. Get user takes one argument. So basically, you have to treat find like a get user. So in this case, you can actually pass in one argument because get user takes one argument. All right, let's save it. And there we go. We got the user. Isn't that amazing? That how easily you can actually share information if you have created a separate file like user.js and you want to share it. The only thing you need to do is to export it. And this is kind of like a template or a kind of like a blueprint that you are defining that this gets exported. So let's say if I want to access all the users, what should I do? I'm simply going to say comma. There is another key, all. That's the key. It can be anything. I can say cat. It doesn't matter. But obviously name something that is more descriptive, making sense. So what should I put over here on line number 14? What value should the other person get if I want to get them to access users? Users, right? It can be anything. The value can be anything. Over here, we are saying find and we are saying get user, which is a function. But over here, we are saying the key is all and the value is users, which is just a variable. All right, so let's go back to our app.js. And instead of that route, I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to say /list function request response. And now I can say response.send. I already have access to the user object on line number 3, which we created. So how can I call all? Well, user.all. That's it. So if I go to over here /list, I get all the users. And if I go to the the root, I'll get one user because it's going over here. So you see that how creating modules and creating separate files for things that are separate, they are different entities, they have a different purpose, and not polluting your app.js makes everything simple and also allows you to export whatever functionality user.js wants to make it available for other files. All right, so one other activity that you can do over here is add something over here like a delete, which takes a username and removes from the array. How can you do that? Think about it. It will be very similar to the find, which what we are doing over here. The key is find, and it is mapped to, it is pointing to get user, but the delete will be pointing to maybe delete user, which will take a username and removes it from the user's array. All right, so that's pretty much it. And in this lecture, we covered how to modularize your Express application.